Despite Joe Biden's pledges,
this war has to end.
Washington remains the chief arms dealer in Yemen and a main vector for intensifying violence. Recent U.S. arms sales to Riyadh seem to have emboldened Saudi Arabia and the UAE to go on the offensive in Yemen. By taking the side of the Saudis and Emiratis, the U.S. risks prolonging the conflict and escalating our involvement in this war. The most recent Saudi arms transfers are allegedly intended for the kingdom's territorial defense. But in the last month, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have also ramped up offensive campaigns inside Yemen, aggressive military moves that seem to contradict claims made by Saudi allies in major U.S. newspapers. We've already sold the Saudis billions in offensive weapons, so only selling defensive weapons now won't constrain them at all. Furthermore, the missiles allow Saudi to bolster its blockade of Yemen by preventing fuel from coming into the country. A blockade is, by definition, an offensive action. Despite the Biden administration's attempts to distinguish offensive from defensive weapons, it's clear there's no distinction in how the Saudis use them. U.S. support is unconditional. Rather than working to end the conflict, the U.S. is enabling Saudi belligerence. The Saudi and Emirati offensive campaigns are also now putting U.S. soldiers stationed in the region at risk. Houthi rebels have recently claimed responsibility for several missile and drone attacks targeting the UAE. One such attack forced U.S. troops at Al Dhafra Air Force Base to scramble for cover in bunkers and repel the strike with Patriot missiles. In response to these attacks, the U.S. is sending additional military assets to the UAE. Selling more U.S. weapons has already led to escalation. It has prompted Houthi attacks outside Yemen and has put U.S. soldiers stationed in the region who are not yet directly involved in the war in harm's way. The Houthi rebels have committed atrocities and used the civilian population as hostages in the war, but redesignating them as a terrorist organization will immediately choke a nation on the brink of famine and allow the Houthis to deflect blame onto the U.S. for the aid that won't reach starving civilians. This war is already called the Saudi-American War in Yemen, and policies like this only reinforce the image of the U.S. as the aggressor. The only role America should be playing is ending our unconstitutional complicity in Yemen's misery. If the White House won't take these steps, then Congress must.